Hey everybody, welcome back to MUFC versus everybody. I am your host Sean. Wasn't planning to do a video today simply because it's been pretty quiet today, but we did get some, I guess you could call it breaking news today regarding our squad, and I wanted to make sure I stopped by to share my thoughts, share your thoughts, mostly because a lot of this has to do with something that went down before I had the channel, so I haven't exactly had a chance to talk about it, to listen to what your guys' opinions are about it or anything like that. So obviously today we're going to be talking about some of this news that broke earlier from Fabrizio Romano that Jadon Sancho and Erik ten Hag have had face-to-face meetings, and they've clarified the situation, and they've agreed to, quote, draw a line on their disagreement and move on. Talk a little bit more about that, along with some other news regarding the squad moving forward. Before we do get stuck in, go ahead and hit that like button. Go ahead and subscribe to the channel if you are new. Check me out on Twitter, MUFC versus everybody. If you want to hear a little bit about, my thoughts on some things going on in football, United related, obviously. But let's get stuck in real quick, guys. So, like I said, Fabrizio Romano tweeted earlier that Jadon Sancho and Erik ten Hag have had face-to-face meetings now that the first team is kind of back in training, and they've pretty much squash the beef. Basically, there's whether that means people apologize, whether that means nobody, we were not going to know, but it sounds like Jadon Sancho is back in first team training. He's available for selection moving forward. It doesn't sound like he's ready for the preseason, the first match of preseason that's going to be starting next week. Obviously, we know Ten Hag likes his players to get some preseason under their belt and some training and everything before they jump in, but it does sound like he'll be a part of the tour maybe. Obviously, Jadon Sancho and Ten Hag had that big old falling out earlier last season. Sancho spent the second half of last season on loan at Borussia Dortmund, where they got all the way to the Champions League final. Whether or not you want to attribute that to Sancho's performances or not, that's your call. Let that be that. But he's now back in training. We saw some photos today of him training with the rest of his teammates. But today, obviously, just want to get your guys' thoughts on this potential news that Sancho will be sticking around for the upcoming season. What were your thoughts on everything that went down last season? It was after that game against Arsenal, right? We lost to Arsenal. What was it, 3-1? It was a much closer game than the scoreline would have you believe. There was some, we'll call it controversy in that match. And then remember, the big news was Jadon Sancho wasn't even involved in the matchday squad. Ten Hag was asked about it in that post-match press conference. He was asked a direct question, not about the result, not about the performance. He was asked a question directly about Jadon Sancho. Why wasn't Jadon Sancho involved? And Ten Hag gave an honest answer. I've never shied away from my thoughts on this. If someone asked me a direct question, I'm going to give them a direct answer. And he said he wasn't doing well in training. He didn't reach the levels, so that is. And a lot of people decided to accuse Ten Hag of being a bully, accuse Erik ten Hag of throwing Sancho under the bus, trying to deflect from the loss. You can interpret that all you want to, the way you want. If somebody asks you a question, you're going to give an answer. And then from then on, it was pretty much Sancho was done. He wasn't involved. He was kind of exiled from all the first team facilities, no training ground, no cafeteria, nothing. Canteen, I guess you guys call it overseas. We call it cafeteria. So fast forward to January, Sancho returns to Dortmund. Dortmund were pretty much twerking for him all season. We were always familiar with his game, was the tweet. It's so funny how short some people's memories are, because literally a few years ago, Dortmund had a similar situation while Sancho was playing for them before we signed him. Bad result, and Sancho kind of got some flack. And then Sancho literally put out almost verbatim, copy-paste a tweet or whatever it was on Instagram saying that he was being scapegoated and blamed for things. Literally almost the same thing. And so, again, my whole issue was that Sancho has a history of behaving like this at every club he's at. It's always it's never Sancho's fault. And so went on loan at Dortmund, got pretty far in the Champions League, and showed some flashes, I'll to be fair, here and there of what we saw before we signed him when he was at Dortmund for his first spell, but still not what we thought we were getting. And so it's interesting. Like I said, all that went down before I started the channel, so I've never really had a chance to talk fully about it. But I'm more curious about what you guys think about some of this potential news that Sancho could be sticking around, that he could be part of the first team plans next season. Do you want an apology from Sancho? Do you want an apology from Erik ten Hag? Or does the fact that it seems like everything's been, figured out and everybody's agreed to kind of move on behind closed doors between themselves, is that good enough for you? Honestly, that's probably good enough for me. I don't need to know all the details, right? I've never wanted to really believe that fan channels and whatnot, or even fans to an extent, are entitled to that kind of information. There's got to be some sort of privacy when it comes to, dressing room and chats and things that go down between players, go down between managers and players and whatnot. I think that's important to have that. But we got some thoughts here. Ali Al Ali, what's good, fam? You didn't want him? You don't want Sancho back? Is that what you're trying to tell me? He's lazy. I mean, I think that's a fair argument, right? I think that sometimes I think it has more to do with maybe Sancho's play style. Obviously, with the training, I've been pretty vocal. Like, you got to at least try it if he wasn't doing it in training. And again, we saw that in other situations too. So maybe you're right in that regard, that maybe he's not the type of player that puts forth as much effort in training. He wouldn't be the first player to do that. I've heard stories about guys like Marcelo, Eden Hazard. Some of these guys in training didn't really didn't put in 110%. Even Erik Cantona in training, wasn't on outwardly looking in, not the best trainer, right? But on the pitch, they just did it. Now that's where the distinction comes in, right? Did Sancho do it on the pitch in United shirt? Not for me. I think his play style sometimes, kind of like watching Berbatov or maybe even Pogba to some extent, can look lazy. There's a fine line between, not running and conserving energy for key moments. And Berbatov was kind of the expert on that, if you remember that. So I think it's a little down to interpretation. Obviously, we're never going to know. Ali says, give me a proper footballer like Olmo. You like Danny Olmo? I mean, different position than Sancho. I've not ever been that convinced by Danny Olmo. I think he hasn't really looked great at Leipzig. Obviously, he's had a pretty decent Euros, but you never want to sign a player based on an international tournament, like we've talked about before. Like, where is James Rodriguez these days? Somebody fill me in, right? Almost been good for Spain, but he's 26 now, and I feel like if he was that, he should be better than what I've seen from him at Leipzig by now. Whenever I see him at Leipzig, he just hasn't really been impressive. I liked him before he went to Leipzig. I just don't really. He came from Barcelona's academy too, right, Olmo? Yeah, I watched him too, Ali, at Leipzig. Maybe you're seeing something I don't. I mean, Leipzig brought in Xavi Simons. Obviously, they play similar positions. I feel like if you had that much faith in Olmo, you wouldn't need to bring in Xavi Simons on loan. They've got Baumgartner. I actually like Baumgartner more than I like Olmo, but that's just a preference thing. Kagesi John, welcome back, Sancho. I mean, he's here, so it's one of those things where it's kind of like Ten Hag. You could beat Ten Hag out, but he's here. He's staying. You might as well back him. Like, it's not going to hurt, Do you want an apology from anybody? Do you want to know what went down? I mean, a fit in firing Sancho, like the Sancho we saw at Dortmund before we signed him, if he gets back to that can only be good for us, right? Like, who knows? Again, the problem is we just haven't seen that from him at United. Rodrigo, you like Rodrigo from Madrid, LA? Eze's good. I do like Eze. Eze's not necessarily, in my opinion, kind of that playmaker like we've seen from like Olmo or like an Odegaard or like a Bruno, where they've got that pass in them. But what Eze brings, he brings a lot of movement, a lot of energy. He causes a lot of problems in the final third from the opposition, because that dude is everywhere in the final third. He does not stop. So I really do like Eze. I like his energy. I like what he brings. I like to see more of that passing in him, but we'll see. Kagesi John, I'm happy. What the hell? You didn't have a date to sign a new striker and looking for a fullback? I think it's a good thing. Not sure what you mean there, man. Ally says, what's that Wolves winger from? Oh, you're talking about Neto? Yeah. Different positions, obviously. But that does bring me up to a different interesting point, because, Neto was somebody that we've been linked with. And so, what do you think that means for our transfer window? I mean, we've been linked with Pedro Neto, we've been linked with Michael Olise. I remember we were linked with Sule for a little bit. We were linked with Rooney Bargi before he broke his ACL or something, I think it was. Obviously, Michael Olise went to Bayern Munich for Vincent Kompany's big Bayern Munich rebuild. I don't know. Again, I don't know if there's ever going to be a time where I talk about Vincent Kompany being Bayern Munich manager. I'm not just going to piss my pants laughing, because that's one of the most bizarre things I've ever seen in football. But again, what does this mean for us in the transfer market now? Are we still going to be going for a winger, or maybe a young winner like Desiree Doué? What does this mean for the wingers that we have? Anthony hasn't looked great, and I started to get the feeling towards the end of last season that Ten Hag was kind of not feeling Anthony a whole lot. What does this mean for Ahmad? Ahmad came back into the picture. He wants some assurances. Does Ahmad, does this kind of push him out the window? Garnacho obviously has been playing on the right a little bit. Pellistri, what's going to happen to Facundo Pellistri? He was with Uruguay. They're done now. Some of these guys are going to have to go. Ahmad wasn't a Ten Hag signing. Pellistri wasn't a Ten Hag signing. He has no loyalty. Ahmad did just switch agencies, I believe. So maybe, is that securing a new contract? Is that maybe pushing for a move? I think Pellistri is pretty much gone. I've said that before too, based on what his agent has said last year. But who knows if we're going to still look for a winger, if we're going to be sticking just with what we have. I don't have a problem with managers sometimes being basically told, no, you need to stick with what you have and make it work. I wish that would happen more often. We don't see that at City. Pep just is well, I tried this tactic this year with these defenders. Now I want to try a new tactic going in these. So I want all new defenders. I want new everything. So it's a little ridiculous. Ali says, I can name you 50 ballers ahead of Sancho. Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of wingers out there that, I would probably take over Sancho. But again, Sancho is on big wages, and I think that's the biggest thing. The Newcastle kid from Sweden. Are you talking about Isak? He's a striker, my guy. My mom is a better footballer than all Man United wingers. I don't know. I think Garnacho was pretty good last season. Obviously, he's still young. But unless your mom is better than me, your mom could be better than Garnacho for all I know. Who knows? What about Mason Greenwood future? That's right. I forgot to put Mason Greenwood. I think that Mason Greenwood's pretty much gone. I think that United I think it's probably best for everybody at this point. Because what you're going to get with Mason Greenwood, whether you agree with it or not, every time it's going to be, you remember when Kurt Zuma, after all that cat stuff that came out, every time he was on the ball for West Ham, it was just a chorus of boos from the crowd. Imagine that, but 100 times worse. Because you're going to get outcries from, women's organizations. You're going to get outcries from, shelters. You're going to get outcry from the women's team. Anything, and the fans are not going to relent when it comes to Greenwood. And so I think that it's the kind of publicity that we don't want at United. And again, it's not my decision. I'm not going to give my specific thoughts on the Mason Greenwood case because, again, limited information in the public. So I don't like to speak on that. I can give my thoughts on domestic abuse and sexual assault if you want, because that's, a generic thing, but we're not going to talk about the Greenwood thing. Oh, gives the ball a lot, fam, though. Who are you talking about there? Let me know who you're talking about, LA. So I've seen some people with the news today say, Ten Hag back down, player power won again. But if you remember, Ten Hag had said all along, Ten Hag didn't get personal. He didn't get nasty. He just said, this is what happened. We didn't think he was training at the levels we wanted. And then he said he just needs to apologize. That's it. He didn't call him any name, make it personal. He just, and quite frankly, the media have been blown a lot more than it really needs to. You remember, it's it was very early in the season when this went down, and people were talking more about the Sancho Ten Hag thing than they were about City's bullcrap treble that they won. And so I think maybe just somebody apologized, or they just said, hey, we're not going to see eye to eye on this. We both think we're right. It is what it is. Can we just agree not to let it, impact anything on the pitch or off the pitch in the dressing room and move on? Who knows? We're not going to know. Alex says Garnacho runs without purpose. Garnacho's still very young. He's still a teenager, and it's one of those things where you can't teach like talent, natural talent and things, but you can teach things like timing, things like getting your head. You can teach all that. So if you take the raw promise and the potential and the talent that a young player has, and then you marry that with tactics, and then you let that simmer over a few years with experience, because sometimes that's the only way players learn is through experience. You can't always just tell someone something and that's the way they're going to learn. Sometimes you do need the experience. Marry all that together over the course of 2 or 3 or 4 years with these young players, and that, I think that'll really tell you, what we can expect. It's that kid from Nigeria and Atalanta. You talking about, oh, what's that dude's name? Lookman, is that his name? Is that what you're talking about? But again, so we don't know what's going to happen, but the people who were like, Ten Hag back down kind of a thing, I think that's just taking the silence and trying to add opinion and calling that news, which just, it's clear when that happens, you know what's going to happen. So again, and there's always a possibility that we could actually still sell Jadon Sancho this summer if, again, we were, Juventus were interested in him a little bit. I feel like there was another club. Obviously, Dortmund wanted to keep him, but Dortmund can't afford it. If another club wants to pay what we're asking and they want to take on his wages, and again, that's the key. I know I've seen a lot of fans who are like, just sell him. We don't want him. It's not that easy to sell a player. This isn't like you turn on your Xbox and play an FC24 and you click add to transfer market, and you get a bunch of offers in. It's not that simple. It's just not. If some clubs don't want to deal with attitude issues, some clubs obviously don't want to pay the wages that we pay Sancho. Some clubs can't afford the fee that we would ask. Remember, we overpay for players historically, and we pay them way too much money in wages, and this is why we can't get rid of them. And this is why we are where we are when it comes to FFP, when it comes to PSR. It's because of that. We have not been able to sell players at all. I think Dan James was probably the last one we sold for like a profit, right? If you don't count like the academy players that we've sold. But then before Dan James, it was Ronaldo, like 10 years prior. Like that's not good. That's not on the managers. That's not on Ten Hag. Ten Hag doesn't decide the wages. He's not sitting down in the room saying, hey, we'll pay Dortmund this much for them. Like, that's not how it works. And again, same with that transfer fee. Ten Hag doesn't do that. Please watch Europa League final highlights. Yes, Lookman. Lookman is good. I like Lookman. But again, we just got, I think, and this is where I'm coming to with the Xerxes thing too, with some of the news. Xerxes is another young striker who shows some promise. Same with Højlund, and Højlund is who we got from Atalanta as well. Lookman is a little older, so he's a little more experienced. It's interesting. You don't want too many young attackers. You don't want too many attackers in the same profile. You like to be able to offer something different in a given match. You'd like to be able to have a little bit of experience as well. And this is why it's so hard as a manager and so hard as a director of football and everything. There's a lot of all these little factors involved, a lot of these moving parts of this big web, and you have to try to figure out how to make it all work together. It's literally like it's like solving a Rubik's Cube that's trying to like fight back the whole time. It's not easy. And so I don't envy managers and directors of football and owners. I don't envy them in that regard, because that's very stressful. I was on the board for a semi-pro club in my city a couple of years ago, and my job was just taking care of like trying to get sponsors and things and revamping the sponsorship options. And that in itself was stressful, because in America, if you don't have the money, you don't get to play. Basically, there's no pro rel, there's none of that. It's you need to have this much money. This is what you do, and it's stressful, man. And I wasn't the owner. I wasn't on the hook for a lot of the finances, but it was stressful. So the man, Ali's just trying to clear house, man. Sell Rashford, sell Garnacho, sell them all. Galaxy Disney, like it's my new phone, Cristiano Ronaldo. You guys are killing me today. I love it. Give me South Americans. Yeah, I mean, there are some decent South American. I think I said it earlier on the channel way back when. I think that South American market is going to be blowing up soon. We've seen some really good players come through from like River Plate and stuff like that. I think Boca has been producing a lot of really good young players, and I think that market is really going to be blowing up. We've been linked obviously with a Boca player in Anselmino. Brighton picked up Barco last year. Porto picked up Varela, who I really, really like. River Plate obviously picked up Enzo Fernandez. And then where did what's his face Alvarez come from? I can't remember. If you guys remember where Julian Alvarez came from, did he come from Independiente or did he come from River Plate? Let me know. What about to bring Fernand? What are you talking about there, Kagesi John? Let me know. So we have a bit of other news before I wrap up. And again, let me know your thoughts on Sancho. You know, would you want to still try to sell him? Would you start him? Would you get rid of some of these other wingers? What do you think is going to happen with some of these other wingers? I mean, it's good to have some depth. I think we should at least have 4 wingers, right, for some depth, some rotation and everything, because obviously we saw last season that if we get an injury, someone picks up an injury, we're kind of screwed in a lot of ways, especially in that midfield, especially in that defense. So what's that Colombia left back? Who are you talking about? Is Stupinian? Is he Colombian or is he Ecuadorian? I can't remember. You have to let me know. I did a video on left backs a while back, left backs that we were linked with, and a couple left back names that I think we should sign on there. Go check that out if you haven't watched that yet. Talking about guys like Laco, Bjorn Meyer, Club Brugge, Leif Davis at Ipswich. I really like. He led the championship in assists last season, so I think that Leif could be a good player for us. Obviously, we were looking at the Fenerbahce left back, who was really, really good for Turkey in the Euros, Kadioglu. Really like him a lot. So he could be a good little challenger for Luke Shaw. What's going to happen with Malacia? We've seen Malacia kind of in some photos for the new kit launch and everything. So it's all kicking off this summer. This week has been a pretty interesting week, and it's not even fully done yet. So a little bit of other news before I wrap up. But yeah, feel free to get your thoughts in on Sancho and everything. It was announced today, too, that Johnny Evans has signed a 1-year deal. I've spoken about this before, and now it's confirmed. What are your thoughts on Johnny Evans picking up that 1-year deal? I know a lot of people are not happy that we let Varane go for free and we're deciding to renew Evans. Evans brings a lot of experience, just like Varane. He brings a lot of leadership on and off the pitch. I don't have a problem with Evans doing it because he's probably not on like even a third of what Varane was making per week. And I think this is what I said, like when it comes to center backs, I don't know if we're going to be making 2 big signings, but who knows? I mean, this week has been crazy. We're talking about De Ligt, talking about Euro. We bid for Euro. We're still bidding for Branthwaite. Who knows what's going on? It's crazy. I'm talking. Ali says the left back, the Colombian from Villarreal. Okay, yeah, I'll check him out, man. I haven't really watched a ton of the Copa America. I watched a little of the U.S. Oh, I forget who they were playing, but the U.S. just doesn't ever really look all that great when I watch them. I would say I'm American, so I have a little bit of skin in that game, but we'll see. We just haven't looked great, have we? But yeah, let me know what you think about Johnny Evans. I feel like anytime he played for us last season, he was awesome. He was excellent. You remember that sublime lobbed pass up to Bruno's volley against Burnley? I mean, that was a thing of beauty. They reminded me a lot of. And if you guys remember the 2014 World Cup, the Spain versus Netherlands match when Daley Blind hit that long ball to Robin Van Persie for that diving hitter, it kind of reminded me of that. And what a finish by Bruno, by the way. But yeah, Evans here for at least 1 year. I think that eases a little bit of the need for a complete defense kind of overhaul this summer anyway. I still think we'll see either one of Lindelof or Maguire go. Who knows, though? We could probably sell both. But problem is, again, Maguire's on a lot of money, and nobody wants to pay that. So remember, he was linked with that move to West Ham, and he didn't want to take a pay cut. And I mean, I don't fault the player for not wanting to get paid less. I mean, it is what it is. But I don't really think, of the two, like I've said before, I'd probably keep Maguire over Lindelof. But that's just me. Let me know your thoughts. Some other news. Young left back Harry Amas has been training more with the first team. We saw some photos of that today. Probably going to feature in the preseason tour, which is pretty common for the youngsters. We saw that last summer with Bangor. Amari Forson featured. Kabi Menu was featuring. Then he got injured, obviously. Collier was playing last year as well in the preseason tour. We'll probably see Collier feature a little bit more this season, kind of like Menu did last year. And again, I can't guarantee that, but there are a lot of similarities in the FA Cup final. Remember last year, Ten Hag was, the year before now, sorry, Ten Hag was talking to Menu after a big match, and Manu became part and did the same with Collier. Collier just signed a new contract with us. If you ever, I mean, I don't know how many of you watched the U23s, the academies. Collier is he's a straight up kind of just defensive midfielder. Takes the ball off the defense, keeps it ticking. He doesn't get too fancy with his passing range or anything. He just finds the open player, and he's just a good little reference point. So I don't have a problem with that. I think we need some depth in that area of the pitch. So I'd like to see a little bit more of what he's about, maybe the preseason. Are you guys excited for the preseason tour? I know I am. So on to other news today. So obviously we broke that news yesterday that from Romano Ornstein that pretty much Xerxes was finalized. He's flew in for his medical. It sounds like he passed his medical. And then today we saw that not so cryptic tweet from the Xerxes agent that was basically a close-up of a United badge with those eyeballs emojis, right? And so nearly confirmed, not quite yet confirmed. Remember, when we make our first official confirmation, our first signing of the summer, we will do this giveaway. This is going out to a lucky winner, and I'll pick at random when we officially confirm our first signing. This is a pre-match top from, I think, like 2 seasons ago. It is brand new. It is a Heat transfer badge, so it is the Aero ready, Heat ready kind of stuff. Probably a little slimmer fit than a normal medium, but that'll be going out. And then AA0, man, your last chance. You were the winner of this one. Get at me at unitedstatesofunited@gmail.com, and we will pop this in the mail because you were the winner of that one. If I don't hear from you by the end of the weekend, we'll have to redo that one. Or I might take it. Who knows? But we'll see. Let me jump back into the live chat real quick before I take off. Short video today, just a little bit of news on Sancho. Again, wanted to take an opportunity to get my thoughts on it because, again, a lot of that went down before the channel was around, and get your thoughts. I've seen some of you are pretty happy to welcome him back. Some of you are saying let go of him. Some of you don't like Rashford or Garnacho or anyone. So we'll see. Okay, guess you, John. For me, what giving me the love is Manchester United. Garnacho plays for me. So you like Garnacho? I like Garnacho. I think that Garnacho is good. I think that if you've been watching the channel this season, my main complaint with United's wingers is their selfishness and their tunnel vision in the final third. Rashford and Garnacho and Antony, they get the ball. They don't look for Højlund. They don't look for that cross. I don't know if they can cross. They want to cut in and shoot, and it's frustrating. You remember there was that match, I forget what it was, where Højlund, the most passes he received in the match was from Andre Onana, our keeper. There was a time last season where Højlund was, out of all the strikers in the league, received the fewest passes of all the strikers. He's making runs. He's getting into good positions. And we've seen his conversion rate. He'll put the shot away if you give him a chance. It's just nobody was finding him. And so it's very frustrating. I also don't think we should be playing Højlund the way we've been playing him as this hold-up man, like Lukaku or Tammy Abraham. Let him. He's fast. He's very, very fast. Let him run off the shoulder of a defender and put a ball into space and let him run onto it. So, Jesse, what are you saying here? What about the difference between now and Manchester United or now? What do you mean by that, brother? Let me know. Clarify that a little bit for me. Let me wait a few minutes here to let anybody else get some thoughts in on the live chat on Sancho. I was waiting for KD to show up. KD usually shows up. Not my usual time. Usually if I did something, it would probably be like 8 or 9 a.m. I saw this news while I was out running errands. I wanted to come back and do that. Frimpong. See, now you're talking my language, ally. Frimpong, and I've said this a couple times on the channel. Frimpong has that low release clause. I would not have gotten Frimpong to play right back. I would have gotten Frimpong, and I would have converted him to a winger on the right. I think he's very attack-minded. He's very quick. He's very good on his feet. Gets involved a lot with the assist. I think that he and Dalot could have had a really good partnership. Ali says, get rid of Dalot. Oh, man, it sounds like you just want Frimpong to be the right back. Oh, man. Dalot, honestly, has been one of the most improved players under Ten Hag. Obviously, defensively, he doesn't offer maybe as much as a Wan-Bissaka. And I get very frustrated with Dalot's final ball a lot of times, but Dalot has been a very good player. Obviously, he won one of the end of the season awards. It was announced. I think Dalot has really matured, really developed a lot last season. I'm very impressed with Dalot last season. I wouldn't sell Dalot. I would get Frimpong and put him on the right wing. Sell McTominay too. Ali's just having a fire sale, man. He's just like, sell them all, burn it down, start over again fresh. I go back and forth on McTominay. Ali says sell McTominay too. I go back and forth on McTominay. You cannot fault McTominay's heart, his energy, his passion for the club. He scored quite a few goals for us last season. Other than scoring goals, he doesn't really do much. And when you play in that deeper role in midfield, you have to offer a lot. And he's not very good on the ball, not really good at reading the game. He hides from the play too often. He doesn't really want to make himself an option. So I think he's very, very limited. Problem with selling McTominay is he's pretty much always in the matchday squad. If you sell McTominay and we're not going to be bringing an Amrabat, you have to get a replacement. You can't afford not to have a replacement. And so it's just another player that we have to get. Obviously, if a big, big offer came in, I probably wouldn't say no. But for the kind of money we're seeing some of these nobodies go for and some of the sketchy sales going on, I mean, you're going to be getting at least 40 or 50 million from McTominay by comparison to some of these other deals. So what else we got? Yes, John. Daylight to Manchester United. Is it to confirm what is not confirmed? What does that mean, man? Sell all these goes to trash. I can fix this club. Oh, man. This guy, I think, might be playing too much FC24, maybe too much Football Manager, my guy. Ugarte, and he wants Ugarte and Onana. I like Ugarte. I did a video on Ugarte a few videos ago. A little bit of a scouting report. If you want to learn more about Ugarte in his career, what he brings, what his statistic looks like, go check out that video. I did one on Delit, did one on Xerxes as well. Go check those videos out as well. I also did a couple videos on Rene Haka and Ruud van Nistelrooy, our new coaches, and what they bring to the table as well. Go check out those videos. People really seem to love the Rene Haka video. Deep dive into what he's all about as a coach. So take Amrabat back. Ali says, I liked Amrabat. I think he got a bad rap early in the season because we chased him and then we only got him on loan. And then he kind of had to fill in at left back because remember, we didn't have any left backs. I was at that Crystal Palace match last year when he had to play left back and he did not look great. They were exploiting him a little bit. They kept putting these long balls over along our left side, kind of going over him and exploiting his lack of experience there. He looked good though in the last couple months or so of the season, didn't he? He was making things tick. He had a couple of shaky moments. I don't think he's very good at receiving the ball under pressure in his defensive third. He gave a couple of balls away doing that, and he lost possession a couple times. That's going to happen. We've seen Casemiro do that. We've seen Pogba do that. We've seen Eriksen do that. And so I don't think that's abnormal. I think I'd like him just to be a little bit more physical. But again, Amrabat's not that destroyer, right? If you looked at his numbers at Fiorentina before we got him, Amrabat is a ball-progressing midfielder. He gets the ball and he finds a forward pass. He's not all about. I think the memory that sticks out for a lot of people in Amrabat is that tackle on Mbappe, and they think that's who he is. That's not who he is. That's never who he's been. He's the guy who keeps things ticking. Take Amrabat back to Italy. I want to win now. Bring Zubamendi. I do like Zubamendi a lot. Spain are pretty stacked, right? I know he came on later on along in their last match along with Oyarzabal. We were linked with Zubamendi. Arsenal were linked with Zubamendi. Zubamendi's a good little player. I like him a lot. I like what he brings to midfield. He could have been a good Casemiro replacement. I like Palacios at Leverkusen a lot as well. Mats Wiefer at Feyenoord's pretty decent too. A lot of good players out there, a lot of good targets. I remember we linked with Yusuf Fofana. He's, I think, going to AC Milan now. So Ali says, I can fix this club in a week. So Sir Jim says he can turn things around. It's going to take 3 years. You're saying you could do it in a week. Challenge accepted, man. Go find Sir Jim. Let him know your 1 week plan and turn it around, dude. I want to, if that happens, Ali, I want us to win Champions League. I want us to win a quadruple next season if that happens. All right. I believe in you. I have faith in you. That is going to do it for me today, though, everyone. Like I said, wanted to stop by today kind of spontaneously to give my thoughts on this potential Sancho news, get your thoughts on it, share a little bit of other updates. Obviously, Johnny Evans signed that 1-year extension. So get involved in the comments after the video. Like the video, hit that subscribe button. If you are new, let me know your thoughts, and I will be back if we make some more announcements. Obviously, I'm here with the big news, and I will see you guys on the next one. Thanks, everyone who stopped by today. I appreciate the love, appreciate the support, appreciate the engagement. So appreciate that, guys. Big up. I will talk to you guys later.